My Girl Life podcast is sponsored by Glamour Boutique. Glamour Boutique is the leading name in cross-dressing fashion and lifestyle with a physical location in New Jersey and, of course, their famous website. Be sure to use your My Girl Life discount code MGL15. And listen, I know they have your best interests at heart, so check them out. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of My Girl Life podcast. Before we get started, please don't forget to show me some love and subscribe to my channel and like the episode if you like it. That tells me I'm doing something y'all enjoy and allows me to keep doing it. So today we're going to do something different. I'm excited. We're going to do a little switcheroo. My good friend Steffi is going to interview me. And so welcome to the show, Steffi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
This is going to be fun. I'll just kind of set the stage. We met at a bar that I used to go to and you used to bartend at for years. And it was kind of my cheers, along with a lot of other people, where we would go almost every Friday and, almost knew everybody in there. And it was really comfortable for me. It was the first time I really had a bar like that to go to. It was not an LGBTQ bar. In fact, I would say, Steffi, you back me up, it was probably a pretty conservative clientele bar. Would you say?
The majority of them, yes.
To say the least, maybe. And there's some stories we can get into that. So, when I first went in there, my friend, I was with her for drinks in the afternoon, and she had to go and do some pictures with her daughters for homecoming. So I had a couple hours to kill. So literally all dressed up and nowhere to go. And I had been driving by this bar, and I'd been in this bar called The Shack a few times in boy mode, and it was fine. And I didn't really meet a lot of people. I didn't try, but it was par for the course. And it was right by my house. I mean, literally right by my house. So when I had those 2 hours, I said, screw it. I'm just going to go in and see what happens. So I went in and I sat at the end of the bar, and I was pretty uncomfortable, but, I ordered a drink. And, people like Steffi and Mel, the bartender, and my friend Billy, your friend as well, really helped me join in the conversations, tell me who was who, caught me up on some of the storylines, and just made me feel welcome. And I really, really thank you for that, because I don't know how it would have went. I might have gone once and never gone back, and I would have missed making a bunch of great friends and having a good place. So that's kind of sets the stage. That's how I know Steffi. And I'm going to let you tell the story about your Maddie, but we have something in common. And as we got to talking, she's a total supporter of our community and just a great person. And so she wanted to interview me, and I said, let's do it. So that's what we're doing. So did I kind of cover it, Steffi?
Yeah, pretty close.
Okay.
Definitely. We had met right after I had met my bio dad. So I had just met my bio dad. I think it was like 2019. It was like right before COVID.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it was right before COVID.
Yeah. So I had done a DNA test, got to know who my bio dad was, and it turned out that bio dad was trans, and had the full surgery. Like, she's full on now a Maddie. So Mel and I had taken a little bit of time to be like, okay, like, do we ask her? Like, what are we doing? So when you had come in, we were like contemplating, like talking to you and like, hey, like, can we just ask you? And you were an open book, and you always have been. And so when you're like, yeah, I'm Maddie, but Thursday through Sunday or whatever. And I was like, no way, I have a Maddie. And you're like, what? And so we discussed the fact that like I had literally just met my bio dad, who was also a Maddie.
Which was
so
crazy.
I think that like kind of helped us bond, because it was like back to back with us. Yeah.
Yep. Well, I have some questions about that we can get into later, but yeah, that kind of set the stage. And then you've always just been curious, and so has Mel, and asking me questions about the community and about myself. And I love that, because you're showing interest, and it just kind of helps bridge our two communities, because, and I do have one foot in each community, but
right.
The general community has a lot of questions about us. And I think a lot of stuff gets shoved down their throat by whomever, and they don't understand it. I think if they understood it more, they would be more open to it.
I think honestly, and especially like in your case, because you do have both worlds, that people are a lot more curious about why you do your part, and then how you
versus
feel
like
about
full-time or a full-time trans person.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's easier to explain. I think that's easier to explain, is that I have gender dysphoria, and I feel like a woman trapped in a man's body, and I want to transition. I think that's easier to explain than what I do, which is just part-time. And I don't fully understand it. I understand a lot of it, but not fully.
Right. But there's also a difference that people don't understand of like, are you a cross dresser? Are you trans? Are you, like there's just a lot of different things that I think it's going to help people fully understand the difference. Because Mel and I've had those questions for you of
Yeah, well,
like,
she asked me, what's the difference between a cross-dresser and a trans woman?
yeah,
And such a simple question to me and my community, but it's not a simple question to the general population.
especially the ones who don't understand for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate. There's not too many questions I wouldn't answer, and even if I wouldn't, I would not get offended if somebody asked me. It's all about the intent. If they want to learn and they care about me, they can ask whatever they want. If they're asking to be mean or to prove some point or something, the intent is really important.
Yeah. And there's definitely a way people can say things. You'll know
Yep.
the difference for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what questions do you have for me?
Okay. So I'm going to start off easy, but some of them get into like a little bit more depth, which is nice.
Okay.
So first thing, going back to, are you a drag queen, a trans, or a cross dresser? What is the difference?
Okay, so I would classify myself as a crossdresser, a part-time crossdresser. A drag queen is more performative. So they're dressing up usually to perform, and the makeup and the outfits are, well, the makeup definitely is usually exaggerated, and the outfits are more exaggerated and again performative for a stage, if you will, versus just trying to go out to a regular local bar. Or I've always just tried to look like the girl next door, and quite honestly, I kind of dress as the girl that I'd like to be with. I mean, that I'm attracted to. So, and a trans woman, these phrases sometimes get used without the literal definition, and there's a lot of crossover. So a trans woman is really somebody that has gender dysphoria and has transitioned from male to female. They may not have had all the operations, but it's really about the mental part. Do they identify as a woman? Do they feel like a woman? Are they a woman? And that's what I would consider a trans woman. Sometimes I'll just say I'm trans so I don't have to get into the weeds and get into
Right.
the details. The trans community is kind of an umbrella term that I've used, a lot of us use. And quite honestly, some trans women that have transitioned I think they're a little put off by it. I think they're a little, because of what they went through, and it's not lost on me. I think they resent a little bit of us taking a position the same as them and calling ourselves something that they are when we haven't gone through what they've gone through. And it's not lost on me because it's a world of difference when I can, come home and take all this off on Sunday and spend the rest of the week as a white male, which is, a lot easier than a trans person trying to have a job, date, and just live life. It's hard.
Right.
So, but those are basically my definitions of the differences.
Yeah, I totally
We'll
agree
probably
with
get a
you.
lot of comments clarifying and correcting me.
That could be too. Again, I'm learning.
I'm sure.
Yeah. um, this one's specifically for you. Where do you get your truth?
Where do I get my truth? Well, in the bigger picture, I have 3 rules that kind of guide my life. I'm not really religious. I believe in a higher power, and I think I believe in a God of some sort, but it's probably not the God that most people believe. There's a guy looking down on us from heaven, and I'm not sure I believe in heaven, but I do believe in a higher spirit. But I have 3 things. Am I hurting anybody? Am I hurting myself? And is it illegal? And if the
Right.
answer is no to all 3, then I'm pretty much fine with it. So that's my overall truth. And that transfers to Maddie or Jim. And as far as the truth with Maddie, I feel I don't fully understand it. It's more of a feeling when it feels right. And some of it I understand. I've talked about gender envy, which is kind of like, wanting to look like the girl I want to be with.
Yeah.
I can say I'm envious of some of the power dynamics that women have and getting the attention and being treated certain different ways. I find that fascinating. And so to be able to mimic that, I find that very interesting as well. There's a term called autogynephilia, which has different parts to the theory. And there's parts that I don't believe in or I don't agree with, which is trans is not a thing. The guy was pretty out there, but the first part of that is embodying the object of your desire. And that kind of explains me wanting to become the girl next door. Like I desire, a woman so much that I kind of wanted to become one. I know that sounds deep, and I don't think through that literally. I didn't think that literally when I started doing it. But as I analyze myself, there's some components to that. Yeah.
I think that kind of goes into like the question that I had of this one comes from me is like, where do you get your sense of fashion from?
That's a good question because I don't really mimic anybody. Again, I think I dress like the women that I'm attracted to and how they dress. I want to be well put together. I don't want it to be a hodgepodge. I'm not saying I look perfect every time, but there's a purpose to each thing I wear. And I would say, again, just looking in the mirror, if it looks good, like when I buy stuff from online from Venus.com or Amazon, I'll buy a few styles and a few sizes because it's easy to return, right? And then you can try them on, and it's like, I don't know if it's going to work till it's actually on me with my hair and makeup. I can try it on without the hair and makeup and get an idea, but I really need to be dressed. So I'll wait till I'm dressed on Friday or on Sunday and then put it on. And if it works, it works. But I'd say I want to be well put together and just look sharp and confident and like some of the women that I'm attracted to when I'm out and about. Does that
I
make
love
sense?
that. Yeah, no, totally. And now you know how it is to go shopping for a girl because it sucks.
It's fun, and then it's challenging and all the
Yeah.
options and
Like, does this look good on me? You're like staring in the mirror. You're like,
and as time goes by, you start to add things like I had never worn a belt. I'm like, I don't know how to wear a belt. I'm not even going to go there. And so I use, I'm usually 90% of the time I'm in a skirt and a top. Not a big fan of dresses unless we're going to an event or when I go to my trips in Vegas. I'll bring a dress for the fancy night. But yeah, so it's a lot of times it's kind of on the casual side. And yeah, so I don't know if it's really methodic, but it's just more of if I see it, I'm going to try it on, and if it feels good, and you know how that goes.
yeah.
Have you ever had an outfit that you've worn and you loved it and you went out, and then like a month later you go back to that outfit, or maybe just even a top, you put it on, you're getting ready to go, and you're like, this looks like shit. Like,
Yeah, all the
I can't
time.
wear this, but you wore it and loved it about a month ago. But for some reason, it's just not working for me tonight.
Or I buy something, stick it in my closet. I'm like, oh, I'll wear this. And it's been like a month or so. And I'm like, why did I buy that? Like, why did I think it was
If I had a
cute?
nickel,
Yeah.
if I had a nickel.
Yes. That happens all the time to me. And my husband's always like, just wear it. Like, you're cute. It's adorable. Like, you don't understand.
Yeah, it's got to work up here, right? And
Literally.
if you don't feel good in it or sexy or whatever you're going for, if you don't feel it,
Yeah.
it's just not working.
And it kind of puts a damper on your night, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it sets the tone.
definitely.
It sets the tone for the evening.
Yes, 100%. How has being your authentic self changed your life?
Good question. Well, I think I'm more communicative. I think I listen better, and I'm really curious about. I'm so curious about myself and why I do this. And trust me, I analyze it to death. So while I say I don't understand it, I understand a lot of it, but I find myself applying that to other people, and I call it my spidey sense, right? My spidey sense is way up since Maddie, and I'm not sure exactly why, but I guess I'm paying more attention. I'm being more emotional. I'm having deeper conversations. I'm having more conversations with women. And
Mm-hmm.
quite honestly, I prefer those conversations. I love talking to the guys, and I can hang with the guys and do this sports thing and whatever. But those conversations tend to be kind of shallow, and I like to dig under the surface. Maybe even if it's even a little drama. Guys don't like drama. It doesn't have to be bad drama, but just bantering back and forth and communicating has made me more sensitive and more vulnerable. And the more sensitive and vulnerable, and the more questions I ask, and they don't have to be intrusive questions, but I'll dig under the surface, and which I don't think people are always used to. I get that in return with a lot of people, and so it makes for a deeper relationship.
What's the biggest difference between Maddie and Jim? Going along with that, like, so guys don't like drama, right? So Jim doesn't like drama, but Maddie is like more open and honest. And you see what I'm saying?
Well,
Like, is that weird?
the biggest difference is the hair.
Well, yes, that. And the fact that you could do your makeup way better than I could ever do my makeup. And I'm 38 years into this.
Well, yeah, you could if you were trying to do what I'm doing and overcompensate. I always tell my girlfriends, it's like, I'm overcompensating. If you put all this makeup on, and you should see my eyes when I'm not Maddie. It's nothing like it. Well, yeah, you know. And by the way, everybody, Steffi knows me in boy mode and girl mode, and that's what I love about her and all the other friends.
Yeah.
What was the question again? Oh,
what's the biggest difference between Maddie and Jim?
I think Maddie's a little more direct. Maddie will confront a little more, not in a bad way, but I'll ask more probing questions and just a little more direct. And that is kind of spilling over to Jim, however. So I'm seeing the Maddie influence Jim more than Jim influences Maddie. The voice is the same, as you know. I don't change my voice. Probably my mannerisms are a little different. I've had some people mention that. My son did say when I came out to him a few weeks ago that he goes, I noticed you've been more sensitive, and the things I just described, he kind of pointed those out. He noticed that because he's going through some stuff, and we're having some serious conversations and deeper conversations, which is great. I love that. I've never done that. I got 2 boys, and they don't get into too much, but some of the Maddies coming out. What's that?
I said they're boys.
They're boys. If I get a text, it's usually sports related. If I get a phone call, I'm worried. I'm like, oh shit, they're calling me. And more times it's good than, they're in trouble with something, not bad trouble, but it's usually something that they'll just text if they're saying hi, or did you see that? Did you see the ending of the game, or whatever it is? They're huge sports fans.
I love that. That's awesome. So let's go a little bit deeper off topic with that. I know that you had come out to your mom when your mom had passed, sadly. And you said that was amazing. I remember that conversation that day. How was it with your son as opposed to with your mom? Like I know you were really scared with your son.
Yeah, way more scared with my son than my mom. My mom, I was a caretaker for her for the last, I'd say 5 or 6 years. She was in an apartment by herself, and my sister and I live close, and my brother too. So all 3 of us live very close, and we would obviously take turns, but I would pretty much every Saturday go over there. I'd do her groceries and bring them home. And then I'd sit on the couch and we'd talk for an hour or 2 hours easily. And I went through, some things, and she was my therapist, and she's more of a talker, and she'll dig deeper versus, say, my dad, greatest guy in the world, but he's just not, as my mom would say, he's not demonstrative in his love. And so we used to kid her about that word. So I sat there and I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and lie to my mom for, I don't know how many years I have. She was in her late 80s. I don't know how many years I have with her. And she'd say, what did you do this weekend? What's going on in your life? And I would tell her a few things, but most of what's going on in my life that's new or worth telling has a lot to do with Maddie. And even though I say lying, they were, you can call them white lies, you can call them whatever you want, but I would just make up something and say we went to a bar or hung out with my friends. And so when I finally told her, it just opened up this whole conversation. She was stunned, but during that same visit, she became more comfortable. I showed her pictures, and then she started to ask me where I get my makeup, where do I get my clothes. And then each week she'd say, where'd you guys go? Show me the pictures. She got to know Maddie's friends. With the boys, I guess them being 2 boys and I'm their dad was just a whole different dynamic. My mom, God bless her, she loved me. She was my biggest supporter. She's like, whatever you want to do. I moved to California from Colorado after college. She didn't say one word, tried to make me feel guilty. She's like, go get them, kid. You can do anything you want. And, but with 2 boys and a dad, I was really scared. And then their mom, my ex, she would just weaponize this. And so I was worried about it getting back to her. Not that at this point she has anything over me. We don't even hardly talk, but it was just that dad to son thing. And you're saying that I dress like a woman? Like,
Yeah.
I was scared. And I'm still worried that both of them went well, but you never know what they're really thinking down deep and processing. And I hope they don't struggle with it. The nice thing is they don't have to see it. You know, it's not like I'm saying dad went away and here's Maddie. You know, that's a whole world of difference, you know? So I guess the presentation was very similar with my mom and the boys, except that, you know, my deeper well episode
Yes.
where I found a deeper well in cross-dressing. So that was originally a blog. And so I printed the blog out and I sent it to my sister. So I came out to my sister, who's 14 years older than me. She's like a second mom. We're really close. And I told her about Maddie years ago, and we didn't talk too much about it, but over the years I bring it up more, and she'll hem my skirts and she'll do whatever. She's very supportive. But I sent her that blog article that explains how it's not just the makeup and the hair and the clothes. It's way deeper, and the things that you and I just were talking about earlier. And she wrote me back and said, I had no idea it meant that much to you. And so I had my boys read that as I came out to them. I thought this is going to be perfect, because if my sister didn't quite get the depth without that article, that the boys would. So that really helped. So that was a difference. So I didn't do that with my mom. Obviously I didn't have it back then, but yeah, I think that made a difference.
I love that. I think it's way more accepting today than it was back when you were growing up, right? Like, there's been a huge change in the community. And yes, I see that White Claw. That's what this is, my love.
Right. Steph, I need another White Claw, please. Steph's like, right? Black cherry. Yep. Okay.
That's what that one is. Totally get it. Like, it's, you know, like my dad, so the dad that raised me was raised in the church, very religious. His side of the family was very very judgmental. I mean, especially when you think about the church back then. Becoming a little bit more accepting was, you know, it was hard. But my dad having four of us, you know, two of us, that's a whole nother story. This isn't bio dad, but two of us aren't necessarily his children, but we were his kids, right? But when growing up, I've always been a huge part of the LGBTQ community because I do have
I was going to say, what exposure have you had over the years to this community?
I have cousins that are gay and they've been open about it. And my side of the family is very, I guess like it's sad to say, but we're very non-religious on my mom's side because, you know, like growing up, we were just taught that like you accept everybody, there's love, and
Why does that make you sad that you're not religious?
Because I was raised in a family of religion on one side. Okay. There's three sides, right?
So you had a little half dose of guilt.
Literally, yeah. But it's a lot I married someone who's super religious. And when that was the biggest thing with me and my husband was, okay, my bio dad is trans. I have a lot of gay people in my family. And my husband was like, okay, well, that's not what I'm used to. But you know what? People are people. And now he's a huge fighter. You know, he really is, especially now we have our own kids.
When you told him that, did he question your interest in that community?
No, that man stalked me at the bar for months. That's a whole story at that bar.
That's a whole nother interview.
Totally. And so, no, he anything could scare that man away.
So he already kind of knew you in a way. Yeah.
Yeah. He knew that my heart was big enough for everybody and that no matter what, I loved everybody. And so you don't have
to be gay to be a supporter of the community.
Not at all.
But I think people were inclined to think that. And yeah, but it's far from the truth.
Literally, I actually was suspended from high school. My junior year of high school, I was the president of the LGBTQ club. I knew all the teachers. I knew most of the students.
I didn't know that.
And I stood up to the football team one day because they were tearing down all of the posters. My mom had my back the whole time. And my best friend at the time, he had just come out to his mom and got kicked out of his house. And that's what changed my dad's mind was like, I love Chris. I've never, you know, I would never have guessed that, but he was also blind to a lot of that. And he took Chris in for months because his mother kicked him out for his sexuality. And that's what changed my dad's mind about a lot of things. And my dad finally was like, you know what, like people are people. And I think that's the huge part of things.
And sometimes it just takes that interaction to change somebody. And it could be just one interaction. And now you have a different view. It doesn't mean everybody in the community is going to be just like that, just like any community. But you and I both know that there's people that were shack regulars that would have been the last people on earth, one in particular, to ever befriend Maddie or even be friendly. And we can talk about that at the very beginning when I first went, but ends up being just a really nice, sweet friend. Gave me cards when my parents died and will hug me when I walk into the bar. He'll even, maybe this is just all in my head, but if he's there alone, and I've walked in, like Billy's not there or something, I'll sit down next to him and people don't know if he's with me or not. And even at the other bar, Malibai's, they definitely don't know me. They wouldn't know. And he's very comfortable. He didn't care. That to me blows me away. And it's one of the things I'm most proud of. Not that I single-handedly created that, but that relationship is really valuable to me.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, like that specific person, like he has a heart of gold. He's stuck in his ways, but he has a heart of gold and he would literally take the shirt off his back for anybody, no matter who you are and what he believes in. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But him knowing one Maddie in the world, and granted, we both know it's not going to completely shift his thinking about everything. But I promise you, he looks at other Maddies and trans women a little different than he used to.
But yeah, 100%, for sure.
You want to tell the story about when I first went in there, Tom's reaction, which I didn't know until
Right.
much later. Just actually, I think Mel told me 9 months ago that I knew he was probably miffed and like, what the hell? But he was really miffed, right?
He was. So
Like,
I was laughing because if you had ever been in the shack, which I'm not sure, you walk in and like the bar is kind of like a U shape, and he always sat at the end of the bar. And I was at one end of the bar where you do the drinks and stuff, and you had walked in, and I had texted Tom. I was like, "Oh my God, look at her boobs." He
that's
was
all you
like,
texted?
literally, I was like, "Look at her boobs."
That is hilarious.
And so he was like, no, I think that's a guy. I was like, no way. Like, honestly, like, I remember I had
You
no
didn't
idea
know?
at first, not at first. And then, like, we talked to Mel, and I was like, no, I'm pretty sure. And so, like, we kind of went back and forth. And finally, I was like, no, but, like, look at her boobs. Like, she has nice legs. I've always said that you have nice legs.
Thank you.
But yeah, no. So Tom was a little like, I think he was a little weary at first, but like finally, like, I mean, that was the biggest thing, especially with Mel. Mel could always get everybody to talk to everybody else, no matter who you were.
Oh, she's the
She's the
best.
best.
You both as bartenders are just amazing.
Yeah. And that's
Not
how we
just
met
because you know
Dee.
how to make a great drink and whatever. It's just it's that energy and the connection, connecting people, and because people want to go where everybody knows your name and they feel comfortable. It's like I can't wait to go Friday and talk to my friends.
Yeah. And I feel like it wasn't as awkward as like, I don't know, maybe for me, just because like Mel and I were always talking about things, but like I 100% remember being like, Mel or Tom, look at her boobs. I used to do that to him a lot.
And I've seen that picture because I guess Tom snapped a picture. And granted, I did not look like this from day one by any stretch. And it's just a progression. So when you talked about how I decide what I wear, a lot of times it's what I know I can pull off, like the belt thing. I'm like, I don't know how to wear a belt. Where do you wear it? And I don't usually wear a dress. So I never really wore belts or scarves in the hair or anything with the hair clips or whatever, or wearing your hair up.
Yeah.
So I just kind of stuck with what I knew. But back then when I walked in there, I'm like, oh geez, I did not look so great. And that picture, I'm like, yeah, it's no wonder Tom was like, I don't know about that. This is my bar.
Timmy's probably already drunk. I love that man to death.
Well, it was too early. Yeah, it was. If I'd have gone in there like at 10, he would have been like, hey, baby.
Right?
No. But Mel told me that he was like, at first, I don't think he didn't want me in there. He didn't want me to come back. And I didn't know that. It doesn't offend me. I kind of get it. I just hope that I've changed his view.
Yeah.
If another Maddie walks into Sports Lounge, that he wouldn't have that same opinion. That's kind of what I hope for.
No, because like he's just that type of person no matter what. Like I've gone out with that man outside of the shack where we're all drunk, and he, no matter what, will be like, hey, knock it off, stop it. Like he is, no matter who you are or whatever, he will always make sure he tries to find peace with everybody. So honestly, like I don't think that's that's a worry.
Oh,
Even back then, I didn't think back then it would have been a worry, to be honest. Tom's just
yeah, I
always
don't.
wanted peace.
Yeah, he's really, like you said, he's a really sweet guy.
Yeah. Hard to come by sometimes, but yes.
Yeah, I know he's got some rough around the edges in terms of when everybody's drinking. Certain, people get a little different.
Oh, for
They
sure.
handle it a little differently. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're all like that though, you know? Like, but the nice thing is, I mean, you've been with us for, I mean, God, I was thinking about that earlier, like 4 or 5 years.
Well, if it's 2009, yeah, it would be. Yeah, I think it's 5 years. I think.
Yeah. That's crazy. Like truly, it goes by so fast. As I was talking to my niece about it, and she was like, "I don't know if you know this person." I was like, "I don't know." Like 5 years. I think it was like literally right around COVID.
Yeah, well, it's definitely before COVID because I remember I was already hooked and it was kind of my regular go-to, and then it stopped, right? And so I'm
Yeah.
with everybody else watching Tiger King and drinking and
Yeah.
having virtual happy hours. And Billy, this is 2 or 3 weeks into the COVID when everything was shut down. I'm doing photo shoots in my house. I'm just dressing for no reason. And Billy sends me a selfie of her and probably, I don't know, you got whoever. And I'm like, is that at the Shack? And she goes, yeah. I go, what the fuck? You guys are at the Shack? And she goes, well, we're ordering takeout and we're waiting for our food. Wink, wink. And so I'm like, okay, I'm coming next Friday. And I went every Friday
Literally.
after that.
Yeah, that's what we had to do. And like, so like, I remember like the first week we all had Snapchat, right? And like, they would go and hang out every once in a while and we would do virtual happy hours. Like you said, like they'd be hanging out and we would just like video chat each other and have shots. Like it was like 8 o'clock shot time. And we
Yeah.
would make sure we all had shots in our hands. We'd call each other. We'd hang out and we would take the shot. Be like, we love you guys. I have like Snapchat pictures of all of us together.
That'd be funny if we recorded those and went back and watched.
Oh, totally. My gosh, yes, that bar was so fun. I miss that place so much.
Yeah, it's really sad. I'm like, here, I found my place and now they're changing. But I'm thankful for Sports Lounge. Again, it's close and I usually know somebody when I go there, and now I know the bartenders and even the owner, Chris. And so, yeah, so I'm thankful for that. I don't know that every bar that that could happen. Like sports book, I don't think that would happen, that personal touch. Well, nothing will match the Shack. And
Never,
then
but
there's
yeah,
Sports Lounge. That's been really good. And I know the bartenders and they know me, they know my drink. But at Sportsbook, I guess you could get to that stage. It seems more, it's just a little colder and a little more chain bar type
mm-hmm,
feel,
yeah,
a little impersonal.
definitely,
It's a nice
yep.
place, but
No, I totally get that. You got to
it's
find
not the
another
same.
shack, man. I know. All right, let's see. I have a really good one that it's kind of big. For people who identify as LGBTQ, there is a large portion that embrace the culture of the community, but there is a subset of people who do not participate with the culture and identify as LGBTQ. What is your opinion on the members that opt out of the cultural activities in the community?
Um, well, first of all, I don't have much interaction with the people that don't participate because I wouldn't know that deeper part of the community. Um, in the general population, there's people that are more out, you see them out and about more, and some that just stay home, you never see them, but they're part of the same community. I think it's the same with LGBTQ. Not all of gay people are going to Pride, this weekend in Denver.
I forgot that was tomorrow, right? That was the parade tomorrow.
The parade is Sunday,
Sunday. Okay.
but there's stuff going on at Civic Park all weekend. In fact, we're gonna go down tonight and maybe do some bar hopping at some of the bars.
Oh yeah.
I would say obviously to each their own. And I think as long as as long as they're doing it, not doing it because they think they're better than the people or that they have something against them, maybe they just don't relate to that part of the community and they stay in maybe more of the general population where it's not as gay. It's not as, I don't want to say flamboyant, but personally, I think the LGBTQ community is way more fun than the general population.
Way
Whether you
more
want to
laid
call
back, right?
more flamboyant or whatever. And even people like you who are not gay and my friends, you know who I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
They're not gay, but they're very supportive. Obviously, they're my best friends. But even their daughters, you know, had pride flags in the front yard. They're not gay, but so they're participating. I just think there's some people that probably are antisocial for whatever reason. That's fine with them. And I don't think they're going to go to Pride. They're not going to march in the parade. Even for me, the parade sometimes, I will say, I understand what Pride's about, and I understand that they want to show that they're being themselves. You know, I say at the end of my podcast, be bold, be kind, be you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. But some of the stuff that goes on in the parade is so flamboyant and so sexualized, and it doesn't bother me, but the general population sees it, and they think everybody's like that. So I can see people who are LGBTQ that not participating in those kind of events, and just kind of a subset, as long as they're not judgy, like they're better than the rest of the LGBT community. I have no problem with that. Was there something more specific that they don't do that you thought
No, that was just a
maybe they
question I
should?
actually had just gotten off a line and I was like, okay, like I could see that because I mean there are definitely I feel like I do have a friend that like they're always against the straight people, right? Because they always feel like they're being attacked by straight people. So that I think that's kind of where this person was going was like, I mean, you have the best of both worlds in my opinion, right? Like you do both. And so I think their way was just kind of being like, okay, so how do you see it from both sides?
Yeah,
Like,
and like I said earlier, it's not lost on me what they have to go through.
yeah,
And especially currently what the community's going through, but even before the current administration, that what we're going through, it's a hard life. And I
yeah,
think when kids come out to their parents, sometimes,
yeah,
I don't know that any parent just wants to wave a magic wand and make their kid gay. I don't think really any parent wants their kid to be gay, not because they're against gay. Some people are, but
right,
they know it's going to be a harder life. But if they are gay, then that's fine. You need to be you. But I wouldn't wish it, because it's hard. It's not fair. And they've been
yeah,
fighting for forever. And now they're fighting more than ever. And I always say, I have to live with it, but I don't have to live it.
right,
And it's a big difference. My audience is mostly in that community, and all my friends on Facebook and most of Maddie's friends, I see it. I see their posts, and it's really hard to watch, and it makes you mad. It makes you mad even if I didn't have those people as friends, just to treat other people the way they're being treated. But I don't have to live it. I don't have to, try to work a career as a trans woman or date as a trans woman. That is not easy. I could only imagine. So yeah. So I appreciate that.
I really wish that some people would understand that it's not a choice. Like, I mean, that's how I see it. It's like I've heard so many people are like, oh, they chose to be gay and they were miserable. And it's like, oh, if they choose to be gay and they're miserable, why can't they choose to go back to being straight if it's a choice?
Right.
Right? Like, it's
Well,
not a
and they say that
choice.
about trans. In fact, I think I probably hear it more about trans than the gay. I think the gay movement, if you will, is, I don't know, 20 years ahead of the trans movement,
That's fair. Yeah.
meaning that you think about it, there's really no attacks on gays other than if they want to
Get
get
married.
rid of getting married. That's a huge attack.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not saying there's no attack, but they've zeroed in on the trans, and they made them the boogeyman so that they can say, here's the boogeyman. We're going to save you from the boogeyman. It's a tried and true strategy. It's sick. And it infuriates you, but I don't think so. So I think the gay community is maybe 20 years ahead of the trans. And eventually I think trans will be as natural and as accepted as gay people are, which is not 100%, but I think is far more than the trans community. And I also think it's easier for the layperson to understand gay and straight versus all the in between.
Yeah,
And same
definitely.
goes for me, probably you. When you get on the spectrum in the gray area, there's 1,000 different combinations and reasons why, whatever. But binary, people are busy. They don't know the pronouns and all the backstory. They just, you're gay, you like men, you like women, and if you're a woman, and or you're straight. It's easy. A B binary. Trans, cross dresser, sometimes, all the different gender neutral, whatever. I think I think it's blowing the general population away. It has come so far, which is great, but I feel like they feel like it's being shoved down their throat. And there's one thing that's more common than another when I ask people about our community, in so many words, they say, well, I feel like it's being shoved down my throat, because you can't watch a TV show or a movie without a gay or a trans person in it, right?
That's fair.
Which is great. It's wonderful. You have Pride, everything. You have the sports teams were doing Pride nights. Target, you walk in, they have a Pride display with the first thing you see, which is nothing wrong with that. But if you combine it with all the other stuff, and then the pronouns, and the general population feeling like they have to adhere to these pronouns, and you have somebody like Mel asking me the difference between what's a trans woman and a crossdresser. She would never ask that question 20 years ago. Right. It's a lot. So I think what's going to happen is we're getting this pushback, and then I think there'll be another wave for the trans community and the LGBT community as a whole to push even further. But you got to face it. They've come a long way. I keep saying we, like I got
you
one foot in.
You are part of it though. That's the thing. You really are.
I know. What's funny is, I went to therapy for a while, and the therapist was gay, and I don't know, we didn't get a lot done. It's just nice to have somebody to talk to. And I'm trying to figure out why, where did this come from? I love it, but where did it come from? And I remember telling him about going to Pride with my friend and her two girls a few years ago. I went in boy mode, and it was really neat to see everybody just being free and being themselves. And we even watched a couple drag queen story times, which I had never seen, but I heard that they were so bad, right. And they were grooming the children, and they were really about being different, and how that's not bad. God forbid we tell the kids that message. And I'm sure there's some other drag queen story times that get into things that they probably shouldn't. That's a whole other conversation.
There's always one bad apple.
Exactly. As I'm telling my therapist this, I kept saying, it's so nice to see them, they probably have to hide a lot of themselves all week. And now they go to Pride, or they go to Trax, which is a LGBT bar here in Denver, on a Friday night, and they get to be themselves, and they don't have to hide anything. And you can just see it in their face. You can feel the energy. And he stopped me and he goes, well, why do you keep saying they? And he goes, you're part of that community, even though I'm not gay. I'm still part of that community. I'm kind of in the trans umbrella and a crossdresser, and I spend time in that community, but I kept saying they, which tells me I don't fully think I'm part of that community. I live in both. My brain, it's probably hard for my brain to balance that, reconcile it. Right. And having the kids know about Maddie, even if we never talk about it again, it's just a huge relief. Just them knowing that I do this. I can't fully explain why that feels so good. Other than, I was always worried if they found out I couldn't control the narrative, they would think it was something dirty and bad and I was ashamed of, and trying to hide it, and it got out. I don't want them to think that. I want them to know I'm proud of it. I love it. But so I was worried about that. But other than that, it's just kind of a feeling that I'm glad they know.
Yeah. What's your favorite part about being Maddie?
I'd say there's the two favorite parts. One is when I'm dressed and I look in the mirror, and being able to take all the fun pictures.
I love watching those.
It's just way more fun. And my buddies that I've known forever, I won't even tell you how long, because I'll out myself by age. They're like, dude, you make a way better looking woman than you do a guy. And so I think the friendships that I've made through Maddie would be the other thing. And the main one. It started out as the clothes and seeing yourself in the mirror, the autogynephilia. In the beginning, it's kind of a turn on, and it was probably more sexual. And then as you start making friends, and I went through this in an episode, how I went to a Trax bar, met a friend. They invited me for dinner every Saturday. Now I had somewhere to go. Now I needed a name. Maddie got a credit card. And then meeting the new friends, you guys, and my best friends that I've met recently, they meeting them at a party and just having the friendships. Jim has friends, but would never have that many friends. It's just interesting how people gravitate towards Maddie. And I hesitate saying that because it sounds like I'm being cocky, but it could be for weird reasons. It could be I stand out, maybe not even always for good reasons. I'm an anomaly. It's just something people want to, maybe they don't even know. They just gravitate because they want to know what you're about. Like it's kind of an odd thing, right?
Yeah.
And so that I don't mind the attention. I like the attention, I would have to admit, but the ability to make friendships like the Shack. Jim went in there 3 times. I talked to one person that was next to me. I said 10 words to him. I guess I could try harder. And if I went there every week, I would get to know some of the people. And so Jim can make friends, but it's not even the same. When Maddie goes in there and I sit down, immediately there's 2 women next to me. They're commenting on my skirt. Next thing you know, we're off to the races. And that's how I met the friends that you know. I call them my current friends versus my legacy friends that I've known for years. And that's how I know you and the Shack people. Let me ask you, I don't think it would be the same if Jim went there every Friday. I would get to know you guys, but it just wouldn't be the same. And can you explain why it wouldn't probably be the same?
With the staff
Is
or
it
the
the guy
regulars
girl
or
thing?
everybody?
Well, that's a good point. So with women, I feel like when it's Maddie, their guards are down and they don't feel like they're going to get hit on if they're too nice.
Right.
So it's just they're letting their hair down and we're diving into conversations and whatever. And they're not worried about being hit on, as opposed to if it was Jim, you might be nice and have a conversation. But you tell me, wouldn't you have a little different guard up, or you wouldn't open up as much of yourself with Jim, who you hardly knew, versus a Maddie who people just open up right away?
I think it has a lot to do with being a female, right? Like girls like to talk. And it is easier, especially in my line of work as a bartender. I feel like it's way easier to talk to a female as opposed to a male. And it does take me a lot
Absolutely.
longer to want to get to know. I mean, it took me a while to get to know Tom, and Tom is one of my favorite people, right? Like
Right.
he, but because it is a male, and it could easily, and I don't know if it's subconsciously, but it could easily be, especially with female bartenders, like, are we going to feel safe with you? Are you going to hit on us? Are you kind of creepy? Because like in today's world, like you don't know, right?
Or any
But with
world.
females, yeah, it's just so much easier. Just like you said, like I could sit there and be like, oh my gosh, I love your hair, or I love your makeup, or where'd you get that top? So I think it's easier because guys could care less. So most majority of the
Well,
time, guys are just sitting on their phone.
and you just addressed the initial part, the icebreaker. So you could have those same conversations with Jim. In fact, you have.
Right.
And my best friends, they were just over here for happy hour. Her boyfriend didn't want to come because it's going to be the girls. Well, I was in boy mode, but they're my best friends. And it's
Yeah.
like, it's like the 3 girls got together, but I was in boy mode. But I don't think I would get that chance to get to that point with you or with Mel or with the friends I'm referring to if I was in boy mode. They might be nice, but I don't think I would get the head start or the open window to even have that conversation. Go, oh, this guy can talk forever and really likes to talk about the stuff we like to talk about. I don't think you'd ever discover that if I didn't have this hair on and these boobs.
I think we would have, but it would have taken a while.
Maybe. Well, if you spend every Friday, going there every Friday, that's a little different than to meet somebody occasionally or even one time.
Yeah.
Because there's people that I'll meet at the bar, and then we'll see them at another bar and they'll come up to me and say, we know each other from Sports Lounge, and I don't really remember them. Of course, I usually have, a cocktail or an edible, which my memory starts going. But so my memory's not the greatest. But again, I think it wasn't that I was so great. It's just that I stood out. Like you're going to remember somebody I'm already 5'9", put me in my heels. I mean, people clock me. They know eventually within a few minutes. So I think that just sticks in their head and they remember, versus I have a short conversation with somebody. I'm not necessarily going to remember them because they fit in and I'm standing out for good or
But
bad.
also when you go out, and especially like now that the shacks are closed and when we go out, we always have a big group of people, right? Like we all congregate in one area, especially at sports lounge. It's, and then it's like, oh my God, how are you? Like it's like a huge big party when any individual people walk in. So it could definitely be that, but I think it could also be with the fact that like you're always with the same group of people. So they're going to see, you guys
Right.
enjoying yourself and having fun and, oh my gosh, it's a girls' night. And that's what I recognize.
Yep. I feel way more comfortable going out and being with you guys. I'll check in with Billy. You going to be there tonight? I don't mind walking in there and not knowing anybody. I'll sit at the bar, but I'm not that comfortable. But I do have more confidence. And then when I'm having fun and I know a lot of people in the bar and I'm bouncing from different people, I think people are like, she knows everybody and is friendly
Yeah.
with everybody. Then I probably am way more approachable. And then so they'll approach me and then we're off to the races. And so to go back to your original question, the friendships are the absolute best part. I never saw it coming. If you'd have said, when I started dressing, if you go out in public and you go to a regular bar or even a gay, LGBT bar, what do you think that's going to be like in terms of meeting people, making friends? I'd be like, oh, it's going to be horrible. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be brutal. It could not be more the opposite.
I love that. Seriously. And I love that like we were such a huge part of you in the beginning. I really do. Cause I mean, like you said, it could have gone a completely different route. Then where would you be today?
I
Not,
saw a
you
lot of
know.
times I'll think, what if I had gone and had a bad experience the first time?
Yeah.
Because then I brought my friends
Yep.
in to meet you guys, and now they're friends with you. And again, that's another thing that's my favorite part. In fact, my two best friends that I met one before the other. I'm introduced them, and now they're best friends.
I
And
love that.
if I moved away or whatever, they, in fact, we're all getting together tonight. They would continue to be best friends. And now her husband and the other's boyfriend, they're friends. They'll do stuff together. That warms my heart. I say that's one of my favorite things that's come out of Maddie is those two, besides you guys, the shack refugees now.
Right. I know. So sad.
Well, it's pretty cool that you put the shack family group together on Facebook. That helps.
Oh, for sure. Especially when it's like, okay, this is where everyone's at. This is where we're all meeting. Let's get together. Yeah. I think that's my
And
favorite part of the shot
you're
closing
a
that we're still
connector.
together. Yep.
Yeah, you're a connector, and I think a lot of it would happen naturally, but some of it needs to be coerced, if you will.
Force sometimes.
Yeah, herding the cats type thing, and so you've been a big part of that. So thanks for that. I was trying to think. I had a question for you in terms of what I mentioned with the pronouns, and now you're in a different position because you were a supporter of the community, and you probably pay way more attention. But you are friends, and you live in the general population. The theory of being shoved down the throat and the expectations to know the pronouns and this and that. What kind of impact do you think that's had on the general population in terms of their tolerability for our community, my community?
I think it's a lot different today because everything is all over social media now, right? Like and now that we have phones in our hands at all times. So, and I think especially today with the position that we're in with our government, right? I've never fully understood the whole pronoun thing, and that's something I do need to look more into. I will always accept and
Okay, that makes two of us.
perfect. I'm glad. I'll do it. And like my biggest thing is like, I mean, the Shack people would always laugh because I'd always call someone hun or sweetheart or sugar plum or whatever. Because I'm like, if I don't know your name, one, and two, to me, it's a term of endearment. And three, I'm like, I
Hey,
have said,
you, how
hey,
you doing?
girl. And then they look at me and I'm like, I probably shouldn't have said that. Like we actually have one mutual friend that is a lesbian, and
Yep.
I love her to death. And the way that she started to come in, like she sat at the bar and Mats and I were actually like bickering back and forth like we always do. Pick on each other,
Right.
and she just sat there in like silence and I kept trying to like involve her in this conversation. She's like, I ain't doing it. And one of the other regulars was like, hey dude, like, come on, like, don't let her be like that. And she had to finally be like, nope, I'm a woman. Right. Like, and so then that's how the conversation started. I was like, okay, so that's where, the specific regular was like, okay, well, what do you go by? They, them, she, her, whatever. And that's when I actually started learning more about the pronouns.
You know what? I don't even know.
Neither.
I don't know what I've never asked her. When I see her, I hug her, give her a kiss, and
I love her to death.
say hi, and we grab drinks, and I've never asked. Yeah, well, when it starts to be like on LinkedIn, when they started asking, for your pronouns, and that's very mainstream. It just
applications too. When you apply for jobs.
Okay, I haven't applied for a job in forever. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think it's great. It's just more for the general population to process. I think it's all in the expectations, and I hope that the people that go by those and need those clarifications have patience for people. And again, it's back to the intent. If their intent is to hurt you by not using them on purpose or not giving a shit or whatever, that's different. But if they just misgender you or they don't use the right pronoun, the they is really confusing, because how we use the word they in sentences, they as in the group or they as in that person. It gets really confusing, and that's fine. I just think the person that wants to go by they needs to be patient and let people know politely. And again, you can tell intent if somebody's being mean, and if they just made a mistake. Hell, I've misgendered myself telling a story like, oh, the other day I did this, and I went, dude, what are you doing? And I'm Maddie, and one of the people at the bar is like, you just misgendered yourself. Or if the music's loud, and I'm a drummer, so I'm always playing drums with my hands. And I guess that's not that feminine. I don't know why. But Marcy at the bar, she's like, Maddie, your dude's coming out. Just check it.
I love that.
So she's my dude attribute checker.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I think going back to getting shoved down people's throats, I can see where they're coming from. But at the same time, it's also it's such a big deal in the last couple of years, like you had talked about with the whole trans community. It's not as accepting. It's a little bit newer. They've been around forever. I think it's just coming out and being pushed a little bit more because they want the acceptance. But you go to Target, who cares? Don't shop in that section. It's a tiny little section, right? Or I went to PetSmart, and my son loves rainbows. That's his thing. Everything has to be rainbows right now, and that's fine. He's 3. He doesn't care. He doesn't know. He doesn't understand. He tried to walk out with a rainbow cat toy because him and the cat needed to play with the rainbow. You see,
of course,
you can
everybody
ignore that itty bitty little section. You don't have to shop there. You don't have to. So, but then the Pride Parade, it's been going on for years. Okay, so we're not celebrating straight people, but straight people have never been attacked or killed or hated.
Yeah, you've seen those memes. The reason there's no national, or straight Pride Day is because you didn't have to do XXX.
You didn't have to deal with it. Look back years ago when women had to fight for rights. The LGBTQ still has to fight for rights in certain states.
Yep. Well, and then women, when they push forward, there's always a little pushback. So it's as long as you're taking 3 or 4 steps forward and maybe 1 or 2 back, you're making progress, because it's never going to be 3 steps forward, take a breath, 3 steps forward. That's not how anything works, really. That's not how the stock market works, which the stock market is really just a graph of people's emotions.
Right.
The fluctuation, the sound investments, whatever, based on profit and loss, but the ups and downs are just people's emotion.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be pushback, but as long as you're taking 3 ahead and 1 back and making some progress. And I think the LGBTQ, I'm no expert on the history, although I do know a lot of the history. I wish the younger people knew more of the history of the LGBTQ movement. But they've come a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
As long as some of the rights don't get taken away, being able to get married is huge.
Well, and that's a big thing. I was on social media today, and I was reading an article about I think it's tomorrow, maybe people get officiated tomorrow downtown. You want to get married tomorrow? You can go get married. Yeah. And I was that
Pride
is
Week.
So
okay, that
cool.
makes sense.
Yeah, because it's Pride Weekend. And you read through the comments. And again, social media is a huge thing. You could hide behind the keyboard all day long, say whatever you want, and you may not necessarily say that face to face to somebody. But it was why does that bother you? You're not getting married. You're not going downtown. Let it go. Is it keeping you up at night? They're getting married. Let them get married. It's legal in our state. It's illegal in other states. So you don't know if people are coming to Colorado to do this.
I'm thinking about, and I probably will, I'm not sure how far I would go in terms of having somebody on my podcast that is against our community and ask them that exact question and 10 more, 20 more.
Right.
Without it being nasty.
Yeah.
And I think if I pick the right person and I set the stage, and of course I don't have to air it, but I would love to get in their brain and go, what, like you said, what does it affect you? Do you think all of a sudden everybody's going to start being gay, and then you're going to be you and 4 people are going to be the only straight people left?
Yeah.
And it'll be an uncomfortable world for you. It's a tiny percentage of the population, especially the trans stuff. Yeah. You don't even know a trans person. These people that are against, you don't even know one.
Yeah.
So I'd love to interview, and I think I'm going to do that and pick their brain if I can do it in the right way without it turning nasty. But
into
it's
a
hard
fight,
to understand.
Yeah. And that's the hardest part.
Yeah. It's hard to know your friends and even family think very differently than you politically, mm-hmm. or with this, this community. It's really hard to understand why they think that way and to reconcile it in your head. It drives me nuts. I have these conversations in my head with my brother, who, he's the nicest guy in the world. I love my brother, but man, do we think differently? And it's black and white in his world. And my world, as you know, I've said it 1,000 times, it's a box of 64 crayons.
I love that.
And, it's just, and I've had some conversations and I've got some clarifications. I heard I don't care what they do as long as they don't shove it down my throat, basically. But there was no empathy with, hey, I understand. That's tough. It just goes against my religion and that's my priority, but I understand. There is no empathy. If you have some empathy and you have other beliefs, I respect that.
Yeah.
A lot of it's energy and presentation on how you interact and how, we perceive them thinking about us. It's all we have to go by is what you say and what you do.
There are people that I've heard say, because I'll be like, why does it bother you so much? And some people will be like, well, because I don't want them to hit on me. I'm like, okay, well, in today's world, if they do it, it's because they're comfortable with you and like they know that you guys are friends, and that's very rare. I was like, but they're not going to do it because they don't want to get their ass beat. Sorry, can I say that? I'm sorry. Like they don't want to get beat up, right? Like they don't want to be attacked, so they're not going to go after. Like I was like, it's one of those like alcoholics know alcoholics, drug addicts know drug addicts. People in the LGBTQ community know if you're in the LGBTQ community, right?
I'm sorry, but the guys at Sports Lounge or Shack, you tell me the last time a gay person hit on you.
Right?
We could drop some names, right? You tell me, you give me the name. I want to talk to that person. Come on.
Yeah. I've heard that quite a bit. And I'm like, that's not going to happen, buddy. Like,
Do you think it's maybe they're kind of resentful that we're living our life and we do have a box of more crayons than they do. And I do know you've been married when you're married for a long time, things get a little boring. They can get a little boring and you get in a rut and we're out having fun and everybody's flamboyant. Or maybe that just it's a resentful thing. Maybe.
Well, maybe, especially because there are people that like their lives are at the bar, right?
Right.
You grow and then there's like no other way to get out. Like sadly, we have one at the Shack that we lost right after the Shack closed.
Yep.
And that person would always, complain that, well, why don't I have a girlfriend, or why doesn't anyone find me attractive? I'm like, you sit at the bar all night long, right? Like that's your life. Your life is to go home, sleep, go to work, and then you come to the bar and get hammered and you start all over. Like we used to tell this person, go out, go somewhere else. Find someone in your generation, because they were young. They were a little bit younger than me.
So what do you think? Maybe that person, and I don't know, because he was always friendly, but it wasn't overly friendly. We weren't super close, but okay, that's a great example. So it sounds like he doesn't have a great life and he's at the bar and he's complaining he doesn't have a girl. And then a Maddie walks in, a crossdresser, and makes friends with everybody. And looks like they're having the time of their life, which I am. Don't you think maybe there's some resentment in there, and maybe not the person we're talking about, but some other people like, what the hell? I mean, and then that could cause you to resent me and other Maddies. I don't know.
Jealousy?
Yeah,
maybe. I could see that for sure, especially with specific people that their whole life just one.
Right. And they can be resentful about anything too.
Literally. So yeah, I don't know. But you are having
Yeah,
the time of your life. Like,
I
I
am
love
having
that
the
about you guys. Yeah.
I am having the time of my life. And I will say that if I was the guy sitting at the bar, I probably wouldn't be having near as good a time for the reasons we've stated before. It
Yeah.
just kind of fascinates me. It's not lost on me. I appreciate it. And I find it very interesting how society treats Maddie versus Jim.
Yeah.
Not that they treat Jim bad. It's just very interesting.
What do you wish people would ask you as opposed to what people always ask you? Because I assume a
Mm,
lot of that kind of is the same.
yeah. Hmm. Well, what my favorite part about being Maddie, and you asked it, and yeah, my favorite part about being Maddie in general could be anything. And then I would say it's the friends. I guess I say I like the attention, but the attention is what gets me the friends. So if it was just attention, that would be very short lived. And eventually the attention kind of goes away, right? I think I get attention because it's new, it's novel. It's like, what? And then once you get to know me, like I'm sure my friends, they probably don't even see a lot of the Maddie parts, in their brain some of the time they're with me because it's just me. That's what they've told me. So yeah, nobody really asked that. They ask, well, I've had a couple of people ask very personal questions, but I don't get that a lot. But they'll ask about, the clothes and then how do I do it? How do I do the makeup? And it's really more about the appearance part versus what's in my head part. And I guess at a bar when you're out and about, that's not the best conducive environment to have that conversation.
Right. Well, especially depending
So
on the time that you go there and how intoxicated they are, right?
exactly.
I think my last one is what would you say to youth going through the transition of either wanting to play around with the idea of being a cross dresser or fully thinking that they need to go into the transition?
So what would I tell myself, like who's starting
Yeah.
out? Not when I was 9 or 10. So little backstory is I remember putting my mom's stuff on when I was 9 or 10 or 11. And then I never thought about it again. Never thought about it again till way later in life, which is a little unusual. Most of the time, guys that do that, they continue to do it in secret or they shove it aside, but it's always on their mind.
Yeah.
Never even crossed my mind. So I would tell myself what's going to come out of it is the friendships and the relationships. So that's going to come in time. So you need to, I don't know that I'd say you need to work on your appearance to a point where you're accepted. I had friends before, I have iterations of Maddie if I showed you the pictures, but saying hang in there and know that the friendships are going to come out of this are going to be worth their weight in gold. And it won't be just about the dressing. So you can focus on the dressing, whatever, but this is going to lead to something more amazing that again, back to the crayons, you're going to add a couple crayons, but eventually you're going to have a whole box of crayons. And the best part of that is the people that you meet and the friendships and the people that know both me and both sides of me. Boy, I've always felt loved as a guy, but when somebody accepts both of you like that's a whole different level of love and acceptance. It's really an amazing feeling.
I love that. Don't hide. I mean, that's my thing. I think I've told so
That's
many people, I'm like, don't hide who you are. Like, you're going to have love and hate, and like the hate's going to come full force because that's what you're going to see more than the love. But yeah,
well, I have not hardly had any hate. I just haven't. In fact, I've had one, um, I'd call it wasn't really a bad incident, but it was at the sports lounge, and there was a couple there and they were dancing kind of they were having a blast. He was dancing goofy and she was kind of a good dancer and all dressed up and so she came over. He went to the bathroom and her and I started talking. Of course, she wanted to know where I got my shoes and the whole bit. And so we're hitting it off. And I'm sure she clocked me and knew I was a dresser, a guy. Maybe didn't know if I was full time. But then he came back and we started talking. And I said something about I wasn't sure if they were even going to let me in. And he goes, well, what do you mean? And I go, well, because I'm not always like this. He goes, what are you talking about? I go, well, I only put this on the weekends. And then he asked me a very personal question, which I said, well, technically I am, but not tonight. And he was, I didn't feel threatened. It was just it was more rude than anything. That's the worst I've had happen.
I love that.
Again, going to mostly regular bars, straight bars. I feel lucky, but it's also, I'm usually with somebody and they see I have friends and I'm having fun. And I think if I was alone, it'd probably be a different story.
Yeah, that's fair. Definitely.
Yeah.
I love that. Maddie,
You said
you.
don't hide. Don't hide, meaning, well, that could be on multiple levels. Don't hide yourself, but also don't hide literally. Make sure you may go outside the house. If I did this just in my house alone, I think it would still feel shameful. And if I didn't have other friends on Facebook, and I mean, there's so many cross dressers out there. It's amazing. All right, we better wrap up. Who's watching the kids?
My niece, she's down there yelling at them right now.
Oh, tell her thank you.
She lives in my basement. She's fine.
All right. Well, I'll have to buy her a drink, or if she doesn't drink, we'll buy her something, but tell her thank you very much.
I had so much fun. I am so excited I got that opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. You are the first one to suggest this and initiate it. Some others have talked about it, but you're a doer and you're a connector, and you put it together, and I appreciate that. Nobody's interviewed me, and it's kind of fun to be on the other side. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you for all the other reasons too.
So much time, right?
Right. Well, great. Well, that does it for today. I hope you enjoyed our discussion. I hope you learned something about me and about the community and how people relate. That was kind of the point. And I appreciate Steffi for initiating that. And remember, be bold, be kind, be you.